Walk-away wife. So, I am the former husband of a walk-away wife, plain and simple. Once the fog lifted, I realized what a mediocre marriage we had and how very self-centered she was. This lovely gal that I had married had suddenly turned into a near 300-pound work and World of Warcraft obsessed, who would yell at me that I was not her freaking father. When I asked her to come to bed, there had been the traditional silence for several months while she shopped for houses for her mother, which I later found out was her shopping for herself. I have abandonment issues from way back, lost nearly all relatives and my mom at 10 to 12 years old, and I did what I thought I needed to do and fought for my marriage as hard as I could. I didn't want my kids coming from a broken home. I tried very hard to do the 180, didn't quite do it. Most of the time I was able to pull it off. But then something small would come up and it would gradually escalate between us until she was practically screaming at me through email. She filed just to surprise me. Nice surprise, eh? I don't know if she actually cheated or not, but she showed a lot of the signs. I'm thinking it was mostly likely an emotional affair because she had withdrawn from me almost completely. I started dating after she told me that I needed to go date people and telling me she was in love with someone, lots of crazies, and I resigned myself that it might be a while. Okay. Then I met my current girlfriend. What a breath of fresh air. She recognized I was wounded but a good man and stood by patiently while I realized how battered I actually was. She introduced me to the 4 agreements and let me do my thing. She did just what I wanted, which was to just let me be me. I will have been with her almost 2.5 years in a month or two. No big fights or drama. Now, present day, things have been okay between me and the ex. I basically placed her on no contact since she would use little things to segue into arguments. I try to keep it to a minimum unless it's about the kids. My daughters are the best thing to come out of this. A friend thinks she still wants to engage me, be it negative or positive. I tend to agree. She still doesn't understand that having her lie to me for upwards of 8 months. No. Nothing's wrong. And plotting her abrupt exit was the worst type of betrayal I have ever experienced. It was made even worse by her basically taking out all of the sins of the men in her life on me while she exited. She says she is sad because I have stated that I don't ever see not being angry at her for the way she left. She has this idea that we are going to be the parents who get along just swell. I, on the other hand, cannot forgive the abuse and the callous way she treated me. I can forgive the divorce. What I can't forgive is the absolute lack of input I had in any of it. She broke up with me. 15 years of marriage, by email, things just went downhill from there. I honestly don't think I can ever trust her again, and I'm not even certain what I would do given a chance to. I could write a book on this, friends have said I should. So, my question is, has anyone ever had an ex like this? If so, how did you let it go, or at least get them to understand that you don't want to be friends with anyone who would hurt them so badly? She made an odd reference to my girlfriend as my current predicament, an odd choice of words. I should also add that she started working out just after her 39th birthday to the tune of $240 a week, hired a personal trainer and everything. I was like, sure. If that's what makes you happy. It's very difficult because we basically only communicate through email, and even a small quip can turn into a huge reaction from her. I remember once answering her with a word or two and she gave me back a 3-page email with how I was so cold and uncaring. In the meantime, I'm sitting there thinking, wait, who left who? The other side of it is that she knows my buttons so well. She knows that I have a curious and inquisitive mind and hates getting half ideas. I have caught her seeding concepts in my head in her emails. Because she knows I hate not knowing. For the most part, I have been able to calmly study them. Much like the marriage, however, I feel that I am being pressured or told that my reactions are not okay and that I don't have the right to be angry. Distrusting or wary of her motivations, it's like she wants to rush ahead to a possible point in time where I'm not angry with her for her actions. To me this is unacceptable, but discussion of it invariably turns into conflict. Like always, she has always been good at putting me into a bind. I share 50% custody, they are with me every other week. She actually bought a house on their bus route back when she was filling my head with the possibility of us getting back together, and it was only temporary. They have nothing bad to say about her. She turned into a version of plastic that I despise, but she treats the kids well. So I cannot complain. I keep putting her on NC, but she eventually breaks it and sends me something that has nothing to do with anything. For the most part I ignore them. This last one was me not being able to resist a shot. She had stocks that her company gave her as a bonus and I was due my share. Instead, I told her to hang on to them and use my half for each of the kids' college fund. She wrote me a few times about her company being sold and I ignored that. Then she forwarded a letter to me from their financial manager saying that all the stock was underwater so it was worthless. She noted it saying, well, it was nice to think it would have amounted to something. Guess it kept me around. To which I replied, just like my marriage. Nothing else. Of course, I knew that would get a rise out of her. But I was a little miffed that she was trying to use me for emotional support when she had rejected me so soundly before. She was close to 300 when she hit her 39th birthday, complaining of pain in her sides. Then she started hitting the gym and spending a lot on money on clothes, all the while staying up late on her computer. I'm thinking MLC or affair. Tonight, we have a group event where my daughter is in chorus. She will be offended that I don't sit with her. But as I have explained to her before, we aren't partners and we don't need to show any solidarity. My children know I am in their corner and that's all that counts. She says that I'm not demonstrating the proper co-parenting. I say I am teaching the girls that you don't let someone roll over you and not distance yourself from them. If somebody treats you like crap, you don't stick around. I just find it annoying that she wants to fast forward to some future point where everybody gets along. I am still angry, and her prodding for me not to be feels like invalidation and a feeble attempt to get her to feel better about what she did. Personally, I think she thinks if we get to that spot then she can rationalize her behavior and give herself a free pass by saying it all worked out in the end. I have even said as much to her that year that I needed to work through my anger and that I will do it at my own pace. She agreed and said she would leave me alone, but that doesn't stop her from contacting me. I did enter the dating pool too early and I fully acknowledge that. I was intending to just do light dating. I had no intention of getting into anything serious. My head was relatively clear, though, having gone through some pretty intense IC. We met, clicked very smoothly, and enjoyed a lovely courtship. We tested our reactions as we are both wary of giving in to unmet childhood needs and decided that it was worth a shot. Our love languages are nearly identical and we are both survivors of some pretty rough stuff and use that to be gentle with the other person. We discussed if it was worth pursuing and we laid out as many different scenes as we could. In the end we decided it was worth it. But I think we are the exception to the rule when it comes to timing, or just very, very lucky. I don't think she turned into a seasoned con woman. I will go on record that she was lying to herself just as much as me during the shutting down process and has even admitted to it. She waffled for months before she filed for divorce, always this dance of hinting that maybe she might reconcile. But then back away because of something she thought said I did. Her therapist called her ambivalent. I wonder sometimes if her post-divorce state isn't just as ambivalent as her pre-divorce state. I have to admit that a lot of the times she started up she had that wishy-washy feeling, which may explain why she experienced my rather firm rebuttals as attacks. I sometimes wonder if the conflicts she experiences aren't more in her own head than actually between us. I have noted she often takes things I email out of context. So, I set up an email filter with instructions not to announce when she sends a message. Now I will check her box on my terms, which will probably always be when I'm calm and braced for impact. I think my problem is that I am just too curiosity-driven. Luckily for me, Gmail is going to be blocked at work in a day or so. That will be one less distraction for me, and one less chance to get slammed when I least expect it. When I was young and my parents were going through a divorce, I most likely made a promise to myself that I would never have a marriage that was like that. I believe that it may have been this agreement with myself that kept me in the relationship longer than was good for me. It's amazing to me what I put up with just to have a solid marriage. I have an inclination to try marriage again. I just really want to be sure I understand what happened, but I think I'm going to have to just let the full answer slide. I think it might be better for me to put energy into moving forward than to continue my forensic ruminations. Another thing that bothers me is that I was a psychologist and a pretty good judge of character on top of that. I wonder about every week or so how I did not see this coming. Lucky for me, the wondering is few and far between and keeps getting longer in between thoughts. Interactions with her bring them back up, so I'm minimizing the interactions. I have a very difficult time recalling good memories because of the awful way she left and the horrible things she said and did as part of her leaving. When I try to think of anything good, it is immediately replaced with visions of her yelling at me. It's sadly funny because she used to lean in and she looked a lot like a rabid dog. Still got a way to go. My GF says it's natural. She has been divorced twice, and time will heal. On the plus side, my new mail settings are great and this was a very quiet weekend because I chose not to check her folder. Ah bliss, I will probably check it tonight after 15 seconds of mental prep, and reply in a calm and neutral fashion. I should have done this 3 years ago. Men do suffer just as much. It's just that our society trains us from day one to push our feelings down and not show them. If you do show them, you are weak or clingy. I think in certain ways men may suffer more in certain circumstances. We are usually taught to fix things when they go wrong. I see many instances, including my own, where that instinct was denied to the point of it seeming like punishment. But I think in the end nobody ever wins. I would have been much happier if I was given a chance to make things right. Then at least I could say I gave it everything I possibly had. On a good point, the ex emailed me today lambasting me for supposedly not answering an email she sent. It was filled with projection, accusation, and a clear understanding that she has no clue who I am anymore. So, I tried a different tact and told her that the way she was addressing me didn't work for me and would she please rewrite it. The reply was just more of the same, so I wrote back and told her that no further progress will be made on changing insurance until she addressed me the way I specified. Respectfully and calmly. Not whichever way she wants to. The next email was pretty tame and reasonable. Feeling good about this, the thing I fail to understand is why she is bitter. She lied to me for almost a year. She initiated the separation. She filed. She forced me to buy our old house. She just can't seem to get it through her head that the damage she did was permanent. I readily admit to my GF that I wasn't truly ready. But she, being the great gal that she is, let me work things out a bit and get myself pretty much right. She says I'm miles ahead of any other man she has met. She is also the most reasonable person I have met. She took a long break after her second marriage and worked on herself for around 8 years and raised her son. We bumped into each other on a dating site and got along really well. I was originally just going to cat around for a bit, but sometimes a good thing appears when you least expect it. So, we had a lot of fun through the honeymoon period and decided we were good for each other after the fade. That was a few years ago. The ex just doesn't get the idea that everyone has different schedules. She wants to be buddies so she can let herself off the hook for her shabby treatment of me and disrupting her daughter's lives. 3 years ago, today, the judge banged the gavel and ended my marriage. It was not my choice. Oddly enough, the sun came up the next day just like it always did. Funny that, little by little, my life began to improve. I got the things that I wanted and worked on myself to be a better person. I attracted better people and personalized less. I became a better man. Now I am settled. Life has given me all I need and I find I need less and less each day. In a good way. I am 49 in 5 days. I weigh in well, am reasonably fit, in a relationship with a wonderful gal. My kids respect and love me and her as well. I am 80% of my goal to have 6 figures in the bank and have recently completed an apartment renovation to be proud of. This will pay 95% of my mortgage. For those of you who need a little encouragement, this can be done. You can succeed and come out even better than before. While it may seem like it in the beginning, a divorce is not the end of your world, just that particular chapter. 3 months later, the first time I bought my house, I didn't have the full input into the situation. I was being calm and collected, as my ex dismantled my family and she pretty much forced me to buy the house. I bought it because I really like this house. It's quirky. Host and beam modern with wraparound porches and pine walls and ceilings with 4x16 beams supporting the second floor. It feels like a lodge and I am very much at home in it. This time around, along with 4% interest, I am willfully purchasing it as my house. Not a leftover or an ultimatum, but my house. I signed the papers today at noon. Tonight, I am going to sleep for the first time, not in the ruins of my marriage, not in what she left me with, my house. I sent steak and whiskey in my immediate future. A few months after she is in her new place, the kids report to me that she has stopped smoking. I congratulate her and she tells me that her last checkup X-rays showed interstitial scarring on her lungs. I'm supportive. A while back I noticed butts outside of the garage when dropping off the kids. I figure either ex-mother-in-law or friends. But Thursday I dropped off my youngest and we had to use the front door, which guests don't normally use. I estimated 300 to 400 butts out there. I mean, they were everywhere. Because the snow had melted. So, I commented to my youngest that her mother was smoking again and she replied, "She never stopped, Dad." Then I remembered her making veiled references to having only 6-10 years left. She has done this several times over the years we were divorced. Then I put it together. I am incensed, outraged and thoroughly bewildered. I have always said that people are free to destroy themselves in their own ways. Unless there are kids involved. If somebody came to me and said I had a condition, I would be fighting it tooth, nail and tail, if only for my kids to show them that you simply never give up. Is it simply weakness? Stupidity? Some weird passive-aggressive thing? I don't know, I just don't understand how somebody would willingly just let it slip away. Why would she ever consider giving that message to her own children? Half a year later, my letter to her. Difficult to know how to address you. I can't call you dear or sweetie or honey simply because you are no longer any of those things to me, yet you bridle so at other things that I really have nothing left. And you have always complained that calling you by your name sounds cold. Well, it is a cold name. If you look up its meaning, it translates into several things, none of which are warm and friendly. Anyway, I met a woman in Stowe several weeks ago who was the very spitting image of you except dressed a little nicer, and her hair wasn't dyed ash blonde. She spoke with your voice, and when I first heard her, I almost turned around and asked what the hell you were doing there. Instead, I positioned my chair and got a glimpse of your exact doppelganger as she complained bitterly to her friend about her computer programming husband who was never home even when he was home, and then started in about the humidity, and how she couldn't wait to go see her dentist again. Yes, she had a thing for her dentist. She was also thinner, so her cheekbones were a little more prominent, and she was definitely using some high-end skin product as her face was flawless. But she was still based of your genotype. Then she started in on her husband again, not particularly caring if anyone heard, so. We all heard about how the bored housewife from CN wanted to have an affair and how she thought her husband was a big child and how he and the boys were just a bunch of teenagers. I stifled the urge to tell her that is how the best fathers socialize their children because I wanted to hear more of the looking glass you. The Red Queen was fully present as she whined about how he should know when she needs attention and that she was approaching 40 and what did she have to show for it. Her friend pointed out the nice house, great cars, 2 great kids and no money worries and a husband who dotes on her. Her friend did everything but volunteer to take her place. She just scoffed and started to complain about how the romance is dead and how she wasn't going to put any effort into it if he wasn't. It was a train wreck waiting to happen. If she had been a black dragon, acid would have been searing the grass below her seat. I opened myself up enough just to sample a bit more of her emotions, and she was heavily and bitterly invested in running a life script. Empathy can be a truly wonderful thing sometimes. Her friend was great and suggested several things, but you, just kept at the script. It was like she was determined to run it till the very end to force herself to make a choice. Or until she had run out of options. Time was beginning to encroach as I knew I would have to make the next game, but I knew the universe rarely laid things like this out before me unless there was a reason. Sure, enough out it comes as she confessed to her friend in one single vulnerable moment that she felt trapped, then just as fast as it came out, she reverted right back to her role of suffering partner in romance doomed to failure. I thought, and the universe laughed at me yet again, sweetly and kindly, as my epiphany rolled across the edges of my mind. I stood up and told the ladies that I had a good time listening to them and then stepped into the Red Queen's 18 inches bubble. I truly hope you find what you are looking for before it is too late. If you want it bad enough. Not only can you change roles, but you can also change movies. It's much better than the alternative. I flashed my best rogue smile and began folding my beat-up chair. The ones we got for our gathering after we got married, quietly noting to myself that she reeked of neither cigarette nor perfumes. Is that what happened to you? She asked. She was obviously taken aback. No, my ex was a mess by the time she acted. She was too single-minded and too proud to ask for help. I'm with another studio now. Oh, that's too bad, she spoke. Not really, it's an independent studio that can do anything from science fiction to documentaries. The pay is good, and there are no strikes. No unions. And negotiations are always done quickly and gently, I said, smiling again. I picked up my chair and tipped my hat to both of them and walked away. All I heard from behind was her friend asking, what was that all about? It's fun to be the messenger sometimes. I had thoroughly expected her to freak out for eavesdropping. Last thing I heard was some giggles and then some shrill laughs like schoolgirls. No matter, I had done my part. Later on, after the next game, I would get my epiphany full on as I lounged in the shade on the windiest part of the field. But before all that, I spent a good deal of time people watching looking for my new indicator. Turns out there are people running scripts everywhere. They don't even know they are doing it. For some this seems to work. They pick a script they like and start running lines. House, job, 2, 5 kids, etc. Then it struck that there were people who were getting really screwed in the equations I saw running. It was the ones who were picked not by the scripts they were running, but by the scripts their partners were running. They were laying expectations on them that they had no freaking idea were being run by them. Take this thought and let it marinate a bit and you get us. I thought I was being cast as the good husband, kind and loyal to the end, good with kids and animals. making up for deficiencies by trying extra hard and being a creative parent. Turns out I was nothing of the sort in your script because you were most likely entangled with your mother's script. I was simply cast as the guy to divorce later on so you could emulate her lonesome grandmother. We don't need men role. I was the man who would suffer because of what happened earlier, and that all men are bad. In the meantime, I'm dutifully playing with the kids and raising them as best I know how. Being a loyal husband and trying to figure out why you were increasingly distant and why work was so important to you. I never even kissed another woman while I was with you. Too bad you can't say the same of men. I used to think it was me, and on some level I probably still do. I went back and reviewed all my email to you, and I very clearly explained what I was about to go through from your leaving. Search your email for the word psychobiological event. I couldn't have been clearer. It was almost as if you chose me to know that it would devastate me. I knew that as soon as you were out the door, it was over. My lawyer Chris said people get back together less than 10% of the time. If one leaves the residence, it drops to about 5% when I relayed those figures to you. There were no crap given. Except for yourself, then again, after seeing a strange car, which had obviously spent the night in your driveway. Just a few weeks after you moved out should have tipped me off, but I was loyal to you up until the point you sent me papers to surprise me. I still think the part that really sucked is that you knew divorce was on the table for well over a year and you refused to talk to me about it. You sure didn't spend all that time at the gym for me or yourself. Did you now? It's all right, you can admit it. You were working on your score so you could bag a new man, or you already had one in mind and were just waiting for the right time. Meantime, I was standing and hoping you would come out of it. 3 times I asked if we needed to go see a marriage counselor, and you brushed off each time I asked. I spent a good portion of my life planning for such an event so that I could be the strong one, but you were already out the door. Remember downstairs in the apartment on the couch you asking me to swear to be the strong one on the inside? Well, I took that to heart too. I took every bit of knowledge I had and tried to connect with you on some level. True, I did do some attacking, but that was only after you brought me to almost reconciling, only to have it jerked away from me yet again. You just kept teasing me with false hopes and suddenly dropping the whole thing. Again, and again and again, like running a script. I don't suppose it really matters which script you were running. Damage is already done. You said things and did things that simply cannot be taken back and might not be forgiven. I will never forget the look of delight on your face when you knew I was suffering at your hands. Did you really think that you could screw your husband over so entirely viciously and expect them to stay friends with you? Did you really think after some of the awful things you said that I would stay around after my head cleared? Did you really think we were going to have that romantic fight and everything would be better? Did you really think we were supposed to be invited back to our counselors without you committing to the process? They were all just silly half-witted excuses because you didn't want to do the work. The guy and, to a lesser extent, the gal both gave me the look. It's the look that says, she's too far gone, best to take care of yourself. Love and marriage take commitment, trust, and a willingness to confide in your partner and to accept them for whatever they bring to the table. I often question if you ever really loved me or not. When did you ever extend me the courtesy of treating me like a husband or full partner? Well, you didn't have to, because I was never going to be the end-all partner in your life. In that way you are just like your mother and grandmother. Men are tools to be used and thrown away when you don't want to deal with them. I fathered kids with you and got them through to the point where they could almost fend for themselves. My job is done, trust was withdrawn, and I was left standing there going, what just happened? You withdrew that trust long before you divorced me, according to your script anyway. The men that you all co-opt into your scripts get hammered because they are sold one thing but get another. Chuck probably got handed a script for nice guy who gets laid in return for chores. But she took a little too much out of him, especially since she used to drop those big hints in front of everyone. He didn't touch her for 3 years, I can believe this. Being a nagging drunk guy can make you look pretty ugly. Just saying, I bet your mother also purposefully tapered off the bonding and made it into a reward system. Some men don't respond well to that. Looking back, I can see now that Chuck cut his losses and made a smart decision. I met your mother at the height of her functionality, so I couldn't extrapolate how far she could go down. But I watched her do it until Chuck left, and then I realized I was supposed to fill in. I did try very hard to fill in for Chuck, but that wasn't my job and I knew it. Until the first time she utterly failed to show any type of gratitude whatsoever and even tried turning Ann on me for her bloody cabinet doors. I froze myself half to death trying to get that camp done, and I did a bloody fantastic job for what I had to work with. What did I get for my troubles? An ungrateful, needy, whiny response that minimized my contributions and made me feel like absolute crap, and then to try a use-an against me. Well, let's just say she was never going to get anything else out of me again unless you asked for it. There is always a but attached to everything with you too. Always. It's that stupid script. I tried repeatedly to show you how your mother was grooming you, but you always took it as an attack. As it stood, I was the biggest threat to her eventual well-being, so I'm sure she was very supportive. In her passive way, of course, in whatever you think is best, dear. I can just picture her leaning over and touching your forearm and saying, "I just want what's best for my little girl." Not evil, just running a life script. Note the forearm, not shoulder. She must have felt like octane when the butter falls. So, there is her script, same one Rita used, maybe her mother before her. Who knows? Eventually, she will ask you to choose, once again, between something or someone you love and her. Maybe not outright, but it will happen. Yes, I am quite aware that I have my own script too. Mine was to fall in love with a person and have a family and love her no matter how hard things were to make up for my childhood and my emotionally absent mother. I would be the best of the good husbands and lift her up when she was down and sing her praises to anyone who would listen. I played the role of entertaining but non-threatening spouse at all your work affairs and always supported you no matter what. I never whined about you working and did a lot more than my share of transporting. Feeding and raising the kids, I wanted the romance and falling into a snowdrift because I was too busy kissing you. I had it for a time, or at least I wanted to think I did. A friend says it's not a crime to love someone too much, as long as it doesn't end up hurting you. I am guilty of loving you far too much and taking behavior and disrespect from you that I never should have taken. I remember having a heart attack on the couch after shoveling and you telling me I was being melodramatic. Where was your empathy and compassion then? They were centered around your own little world. You didn't nurse me back from a heart attack. I did, ironically. Butterball did more to help me than you ever did. I think you would have been kinder if you knew how back then. I took an awful lot of it from your mother too. She didn't love me any more than she loved Chuck. I was merely a man for her daughter who she saw as a threat to her support system and someone who would introduce radical concepts like not automatically bowing before her when she hadn't earned it. Or worse, identifying her tricks. I was a placeholder in her script, sort of a bookend to prop you up while she was occupied with Chuck. In the end she won out. It's no mistake that we always fought more after she left because she always did her best to sow seeds of discontent so she could have your undivided attention. Just look at her reaction when I told her I would teach her something but not do it for her. Foot stomping and tantrums. Something tells me that's not a well-adjusted adult. Ask yourself just one question, in the time that she spent with us. Did she ever once try to calm a fight down between us? Not even once. See, there is more going on here than will be said. Is it any coincidence that you started experiencing more dissatisfaction in the marriage after Chuck left her? She always made sure that there was at least one time when she visited that you clearly had to choose her over me. Your mother is running a self-preservation script in which you play the part of her endgame. That's why she always finds ways to be in your space. Pretty soon, just being there in the summer won't be enough and she will want to move near you so she can be all yours. Dinners at camp will taper off and she will eat with you all the time. Maybe she will bring food at first but later it will be just vodka. She will mention she is a pensioner. You feel guilty, etc. But she needs a convenient vacancy. She will probably wait until Maddie goes to college, then say, well, I could sleep in another room until I find a place. Then she won't find a good space, so she will want to move in with you permanently. By then you will be comfortable with 6 cats and a neurotic dog. If you make a fuss, she will put the cats in a home. Cats, like children, are disposable too. She will make you responsible for the lives of her cats. Sound familiar? Instant nanny. You, not her. She will just continue to pickle herself like a smoked herring. Don't worry, she won't make her move until she sells the camp or her condo. She is recreating her life with Rita. All those times she didn't defend me or encourage you to work things out. It wasn't that she was defending her daughter. It was that she was preserving her meal ticket. She even drove you down to sign the divorce papers, didn't she? It's for the best, Kathy, just like Rita did to your mom when she sent you away. I have had this knowledge for a long time, just never saw it from this angle before. It's quite fascinating. As to your observation that she may become the executor of your will, who cares? I don't owe you a thing, and the only thing you owe me, you don't have the depth, desire to execute. I doubt very much you will ever leave me anything, since that would be admitting you were wrong or that you felt you owed me something. Can't have that, can we? Not your fault. You are just playing the hand you were dealt. I'm also fairly sure I won't get any deathbed confessions about, well, anything. So, no, I won't have to deal with your mother at all. I am immune anyway. I know what makes her tick and I know what makes her run away. Once you have a mouse. An elephant doesn't look so scary. Since she is no longer my matriarch, I don't have to put her on a pedestal anymore, which was becoming increasingly difficult because as she ages, she gets needier. But that's your basket of worms now. I want you to know that I always tried to respect your need for time with your mother, and I was always confident that you would return to me in good time. I didn't like going to the lake because all I felt was an overwhelming pressure to work for your mother. It was like she expected it out of me and I simply could not relax there. I know she said I was being antisocial to many people there, but it wasn't antisocial of me to want alone time because that's how I recharge. I was simply taking care of myself. Some people do it by visiting other people. I do it by being by myself. People rarely understand that it's exhausting to be around too many people. For me at least, whether you realize it or not, this is my reality when I see you. You have a cross to bear, as we all do. It's just that I can see it from a different angle than you can. Even if it's 100% wrong, it's still the way I see you. You can never get someone to see you as you truly are. Only as you try to present yourself. No matter what, people will lay their own filters down over you just as you will lay yours over theirs. It's how humans survive. It saddens me a great deal that you have ceased to see the real me and insist on keeping your filters on. It's a small death of me that I feel every day. The fact is that I am still the same man you fell in love with all those years ago. Good with children and animals, loyal and caring, creative, loving, introverted and organizationally challenged. I understand that you need to make sure I stay slightly bad in your mind to rationalize your treatment of me and the subsequent death of us. Having treated hundreds, I know it all too well. Feel free to hold on to whatever ideas you have created about me. It will help you run your script, now that I can clearly see your script and how it is intertwined with your mother's. I actually feel sorry for you, maybe even pity you. There is no way you can get away from it, and it's lodged quite firmly in your life. It's there, and even trying to get rid of it won't work because your mother will simply reinforce hers. You and your mother are intertwined in a way that will always interfere. Kind of funny that I got too little, mother, and you got too much. It was never going to end in anything other than me losing, and I am facing that fact. In the meantime, it is unfair of me to hold your actions against you. Now that I see it from a different side, there was very little you could have done to escape the bind you were in, and the pressure would have eventually broken you. One could argue you made the right call in cutting me loose, since I am a survivor. Always have been. I'm not saying it was purposeful, or even thought about on a conscious level, as I am still of a mind that thinks you are not fully aware of your actions. It just is. I know there were other pressures that lead you off the path. All I can tell you is that I am still very disappointed that you chose your mother over me, and that I really did think we had all that we needed to be a great couple. Now that I know how much differently we saw the future, I can only forgive you for not seeing things as I thought you saw them. I wish things could have been different. I wish I didn't feel so betrayed, and I wish that you were not the way you are. I can't imagine willingly tearing your family apart to escape some unseen pressures only to end up like you are now. There was never any way for us to win. You showed me the person you wanted to be, not the person you are. When the script started to override that, I can only imagine that you felt empty and lonely inside, like a microphone feeding back on itself. That's why you were such a basket case by the time you left. I watched you change, and it was not a fun show for me when you left. I did breathe a sigh of relief for you because I knew that at least some of that pressure would abate, but I could never figure out where all that anger was coming from. For what it's worth, I would have given myself up to give you my last breath. But mostly I was willing to fight to make sure you could draw more. I'm sorry my constant attempts to connect with you were seen as badgering, and I'm sorry I couldn't keep my cool when the woman I loved most in the world rebuffed me. I loved you as much as any human could love another, and you broke my heart. I will never be the same person I was before. I forgive you for as much as I can. My comment: what do you guys think a marriage does to a person, especially a bad marriage? Can you come out stronger? Comment down below, and I will get back to making more videos for you guys.